The Leominster City Council meeting is funded in part by DeCarolis Insurance Agency at www.decarolisinsuranceagency.com and by Avidia Bank at www.avidiabank.com.
Is it? Are these on? Okay.
Good evening, welcome. It is now 6 p.m. Welcome to this meeting of the Leominster City Council for November 10th, 2025. We're starting at 6 p.m. with a public hearing, and I'm going to turn it over to the Chairwoman of Legal Affairs, Susan Shalafo-Zephyr.
Thank you very much, Council Cormier. My name is Sue Shalafo-Zephyr. This is a public hearing before the Legal Affairs Committee and the Leominster City Council. I am the chairperson of the Legal Affairs Committee. Councilor Robert Tossi, the Ward 1 councilor, is also on the committee, as well as the acting chair tonight, Councilor Pauline Cormier from Ward 2. So this is on petition 9-26. Susan Shalafo-Zephyr, Brandon Robbins, councilors at large, Ward 1 councilor Robert M. Tossi, and 10 registered voters. Request to amend the zoning ordinance pertaining to MU2 zoning. So this was first on the calendar in August 25th. Given further time, we opened the public hearing and continued it through a number of other meetings until this evening. So what I am going to do before we start, we received one letter that I will read into the record. And this is from Gulston and Stores, dated November 7th, 2025. It was sent to the City Clerk Elizabeth Doran, City of Leominster. Dear City, regarding petition 9-26, request to amend MU2 district of the zoning ordinance. Dear City Clerk Doran, I write on behalf of the property owners in the Multi-Use District 2, MU2, listed on Exhibit A, to file a written protest pursuant to Section 22.14.14 of the Leominster zoning ordinance concerning the adoption of petition 9-26, request to amend the MU2 district in the Leominster zoning ordinance prior to final action by the City Council on such petition. As set forth below and as required by Section 22.14.14 of the zoning ordinance, this written request requires that the adoption of such petition be approved by a 3/4 vote of all members of the City Council. As required by Section 22.14.14 of the zoning ordinance, owners of 20% or more of the land in the MU2 district have signed this written protest as shown on Exhibit A to this letter. The approximate size of the parcels owned by each owner is shown on Exhibit A. These owners own well in excess of 20% of the area of land in the MU2 district. The owners of these parcels have the following reasons to protest the adoption of Petition 9-26, in addition to others that will be presented to the City Council at the hearing on this matter. The MU2 district was originally set aside to provide an area of the city for more intensive development to meet the city's needs. However, for many years, desired development, including housing development the city urgently needs, did not occur. One of the impediments to housing creation was the requirement in the prior MU2 district that housing must proceed together with other limited uses in a mixed-use development, that the amount of housing allowed to be constructed, and that the amount of housing allowed to be constructed was limited. As was stated in Director Wood's memorandum to the Planning Board on Petition 9-26, dated October 9, 2025, this lack of development and need for housing led to the establishment of a housing committee that reviewed zoning constraints in the city and recommended certain changes to the MU2 district. Amendments to the MU2 district were later proposed. The Planning Board recommended approval of these amendments by a 7-0 vote, and the amendments were approved by the City Council by a vote of 8-1 on January 13, 2025. Petition 9-26 would suddenly reverse recent well-planned zoning changes to the MU2 district, harm economic development and housing creation in the city, and harm the property and development rights of the undersigned owners. Undoing these recent, thoughtful zoning amendments would create a dangerous precedent for future development. How do developers commit significant amounts of time and money to invest in efforts to seek approvals to develop in the city if that zoning can be reversed or changed so suddenly? This reversal of recent zoning amendments would harm economic development, tax revenues, and housing creation, all of which are important to the city, as well as the ability of the undersigned owners to effectively develop their property in the MU2 district. Finally, Petition 9-26 is harmful to housing creation. Petition 9-26 would prohibit multifamily use on the first floor, requiring other uses on the first floor. It is not economically feasible to require non-residential uses on the first floor of every multifamily building. There isn't sufficient demand for non-residential development in the MU2 district to occupy this first floor space. Prohibiting multifamily use on the first floor effectively means building vacant space, thereby prohibiting multifamily development in the MU2 district. Further, as proposed in Section 28.3.3, would prohibit multifamily use on the first floor of a building. We question, how can multifamily residents get to a unit on the second or higher floor unless there is a multifamily lobby that is use on the first floor? Is this intended to be another backdoor way to prohibit multifamily use? We understand that the city solicitor has recently confirmed the applicability of Section 22.14.14 of the zoning ordinance in connection with a written protest filed for a different proposed zoning amendment. To avoid any confusion, this written protest is also delivered pursuant to the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 5, which requires a 2/3 vote of the City Council to approve Petition 9-26, absent Section 22.14.14 of the zoning ordinance, as this written protest is signed by owners of 20% or more of the land in the MU2 district, and the reasons for such protest are stated above. Please contact me should you have any questions. Thank you sincerely, Christian Regnier. The owners, here is Exhibit A. The property owners are 3 Orchard Hill Park Drive, Greg Lascotti, manager. 10 Orchard Hill Park Drive, Greg Lascotti, manager. 83 Orchard Hill Park Drive, Greg Lascotti, manager. OHP parcel 00011, parcel 463-11, John Scribner, trustee. 9 Orchard Hill Park Drive, Derby Farm LLC, Greg Lascotti, manager. 12-82 Orchard Hill Park Drive, Greg Lascotti, manager. OHP parcel 0002F, parcel F, ID 384-4-2F, John Scribner, trustee. OHP parcel 001C, hyphen parcel E, ID 386-4-1C, John Scribner, trustee. And then there are several. OHP parcel 0005, parcel 386-4-5, Pioneer Drive Extension Lot 1B, parcel 369-1-1B, Pioneer Drive Extension Lot 2, parcel 369-1-2, Pioneer Drive Lot, Extension Lot 3, parcel 369-1-3, Pioneer Drive Extension Lot 4, hyphen parcel 369-1-4, Pioneer Park LLC, Greg the Scotty manager. So I want to get that into the record because that was something we received, I think, today. So with that read into the record, I'll begin. I was the 8-to-1. I was on the 8-to-1. I was the one on the night of that vote. And the reason that I voted against it at the time is we had very little information. We had a process that was unusual, to say the least, when the planning director came down alone without any support from the MRPC, which is the Montechusett Regional Planning Council. And those folks are a hired consultant by the city. They've done a lot of zoning work in the city. They've come down here and talked to the city council many, many times and have presented zoning changes, most recently on accessory dwelling units, according to the state's new law that we are in the process of trying to work with. So in any case, I did not have enough information. I asked a lot of questions, as did other city councilors, and asked Ashley for further time that evening, and the legal affairs person at the time did not think that that was appropriate. So the vote was taken. So I thought from the beginning that this particular zoning change was problematic. First of all, because I couldn't get any straight answers, and second of all, it was just unusual, because normally we have somebody here who's written the zoning and can really speak to all of the details in it. So with that said, I'm going to go to the other petitioners that are on the city council, and I will first go to the Ward 1 councilor, Mr. Tossi.
Thank you. Thank you, Sue. I actually was very surprised at the increase in the density allowed by the new zoning amendment that we made. We went from 12.4 potential units per acre to 21.8 units per acre, which is, and right now we're seeing the damage that can be done by this zoning amendment in Ward 1 and of course, our great city of Leominster. I would just hope that other councilors, all of us, can get together and push this back to where it should be, which was fair enough originally where it was, and get back to reasonable numbers with if we build, we need to make sure that we don't overbuild in areas that are really tight with space, and Ward 1 is one of those areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. And I'll go next to Councilor Robbins, also on the petition.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll start by recognizing that obviously this has become a really hot topic with strong opinions on both sides of the argument, and I think that Leominster showed with the fairgrounds that we can have a reasonable conversation about tough issues, and I just hope that this continues with this petition here tonight. I think the first thing is, when this petition first came before us, we made a decision with the information that we had presented to us. It's become clear to me that that wasn't the full picture, and I personally should have fought harder for further time, and I made reference to that in my comments. And, I think that, as a city councilor, I'm perfectly happy admitting that I should have been harder in that fight. I am not by any means against housing or development in the city of Leominster, but I think we need to talk about growth in a responsible way, and one that we can have clear public input in. And I think by changing this petition originally, we took that specific process away, and the scale of this was definitely, as the Ward 1 councilor alluded to, more than anybody sitting here, I think, really recognized when we took that original vote. I think that this petition really just allows us to rethink our vision for Leominster. It doesn't prohibit housing here. The old zoning still allows for housing. It allows us to look at this in a more community-oriented way. And I know that there are a lot of people here who are, who want to speak on it as well. So, I'll leave it at that for now, so that the public can speak on this matter as well.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to make one more point, too, because I want people to really understand the density. In the prior zoning, before it was changed, by right, the density was 12.4 units per acre. 12.4 units per acre. And I think under the old zoning, I believe it was 40 acres that could be developable. around that. That 40 acres at 12.4 units is 496 units. So we're not talking super low density. We're not talking 100 units. We are talking 496 by right, If the developer wanted to pursue a special permit, then the density shoots up to 17.4 acres per unit, right? That would give 696 units on a 40-acre parcel, right? 696 units with a special permit on 40 acres. And now, with the zoning change that was passed with I'm going to say very little, I won't say no information, but very little, no responses, no clear indication of what the potential density was, 872 units, 21.8 units per acre. That's what the allowed by right density is with that zoning change.
So I'd like to add, that's 75% increase.
That's right.
75%.
Yep, increase. So again, the change back is not talking about, first of all, it probably wouldn't even impact this development, number one. However, the conversations about density, people really need to understand what those numbers are. Went from 12.4 by right, 17.4, and then a whopping 21.8, and as Mr. Tossi said, that's a 75% increase in density. Okay? So that's what we're talking about. So at this point, I have lots of other comments, but I am going to go to the City Council to see if anybody on the council has any questions or any comments that they'd like to weigh in before we open it to the public. No? Anybody? Okay. So I know, in addition to the 3 city councilors who signed on to that petition and submitted it, there were 110 Leominster residents that signed on to the petition, and I see some of them are in the public tonight. So again, anybody in the public, and if you did sign the petition and wanted to state that, you're more than welcome to come up to the podium and speak again on petition 9-26.
Hello, Haley Brady, 200 Harvard Street. Just quickly, so for my own clarification, that letter was stating that because 20% landowners in MU2 signed a petition, it requires 2/3 vote.
3/4. Yeah.
I just want to state that not one person that signed that petition is in the MU2 district.
They own the land. They are the landowners. That's my understanding.
Like, the petition signers are the landowners?
No. The people who signed the letter, the protest letter,
Okay.
they own the land,
Oh, okay.
and that's why.
Makes sense. It's all one entity, so that makes sense. I wrote a letter. So, dear members of City Council, thank you for hearing this agenda item and giving it the attention it deserves. Our city is facing significant changes. It's encouraging to see how many people are here and how many care. I know that each of you serves on this council because Leominster matters to you. It matters to me too. The changes made to the MU2 zoning in January have already had a major impact. Before the 86 Orchard Hill project was introduced, I could not have defined terms like density, by right, special permit. Those meant little to me then, but watching this process unfold has been eye-opening. I understand these changes were made to address Leominster's housing shortage, a very real issue. But alongside discussions of compliance, MBTA overlays, and accessory dwelling units came this. While we have not yet seen the full effects of the overlay districts or ADU provisions, we are beginning to see the consequences of this zoning change. A national developer has been able to move forward with a 294-unit apartment complex by right, leaving both residents and the city with no ability to respond or negotiate. This decision not only silenced residents, but also limited the city's authority. This level of change is unlike anything Leominster has ever seen. To put it in perspective, no other area in the city allows this degree of density. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brooks Pond does not have this density allowance. Winnie Carriage does not have this density allowance. The multifamily overlay districts do not have this level of density allowance. The current MU2 zoning has the potential to dramatically reshape not only Ward 1, but the entire city. During the December 9th special meeting between City Council and Planning, It was decided to spread the overlay districts throughout the city as to not overburden Ward 1, especially with traffic. These MU2 changes are in complete contrast to the struggles identified at that meeting. The Planning Board originally had discussion of MU2 on December 2nd, but were asked to delay their recommendation until after that special meeting. The entire Planning Board, City Council, and Mr. Boyle were all in attendance, but you were not given the chance to ask questions and hear responses. During that meeting, Mr. Boyle stated that 177 communities will need to make up the 296,806 state unit shortage, and that Leominster's contribution will be less than 1%. That is simply untrue. This build-out at Orchard Hill alone is 1% of that, and we have not yet seen what the overlays will add. The most devastating part of this change was the removal of the special permit. In effect, the city has given away its negotiating power. A developer could propose a 1,000-unit project tomorrow without offering anything in return. The financial burden of added infrastructure, public safety, other costs would fall squarely on the taxpayers. Under a special permit process, the city has leverage. If a developer stands to make millions, the city can reasonably ask for investments in return, such as funding our schools, public safety, or sidewalks to offset traffic impacts. Those are common sense conditions that ensure development benefits the community. Without a special permit, the city loses that ability. Zoning has also weakened the planning board's capacity to guide thoughtful development. Through the site plan approval process, the planning board's oversight becomes almost non-existent. This process also dramatically weakens the Conservations Authority. These are dedicated, knowledgeable individuals tasked with protecting Leominster's natural resources. Yet their scope has been so narrowed, they cannot effectively do the work entrusted to them. Reversing this zoning would not stop housing. It simply restore reasonable guardrails. MU2 previously allowed housing by right, just at a much lower density. Developers seeking a larger build could still apply for a special permit, ensuring oversight and balance. Some have suggested that reversing the zoning now would make no difference because the developer has already submitted subdivision plans, effectively freezing the current zoning for the next 8 years. However, as was stated at a recent planning board meeting, this subdivision is only preliminary. It could be rescinded or denied. We don't know what will happen. Reversing the zoning tonight would start a 7-month clock for the developer to file a definitive plan. That definitive plan would help the city understand what we are dealing with here and prepare accordingly. If it's 1,000 more housing units, we can start hiring emergency response personnel. If it's a hotel, we can prioritize traffic and flow patterns. Promise I'm almost done. If a definitive plan is not filed within that time frame, even better. The reversal would take effect and the city would regain its oversight through the special permit process. Leaving the current zoning unchanged removes any chance to plan reasonably for the future. Growth, when done thoughtfully, is healthy for the community. I believe with the intelligence of this board and the residents, we can grow in an informed and reasonable way. We do not need to leave our city's future in the hands of developers.
Is there anybody else in the public who would like to speak on petition 9-26?
Liz Macarella, 75 Harvard Street. Did not prepare such a well-written letter, Haley, but I do want to go on the record as saying I agree 100% with everything that she said. I'll also just try to add a few thoughts. The MU2 zoning, as it existed previously, offered more safeguards and protections for responsible, thoughtful, transparent growth for this city. It did not say no growth. It just offered more tools for the different boards who would become involved to weigh in and make sure that due diligence was really done so that we understand the full scope of the potentially huge developments that could be on the line. One of the most concerning pieces of that original zoning that got obliterated was the notice of requirement for notification of abutters. This is really deeply concerning on a transparency level. I don't understand personally how you could expect a resident of this city to not need to be notified of a project of this magnitude going up right next door to them. But that is the case for the current 86 Orchard Hill Park Drive project that we have on the table right now. There was no requirement for notification of any of the abutters. And so because of that, no one in the neighborhood understood what was going on until we were already further down the road of the approval process. And I know there have been statements from some of the city administration about how there were ample opportunities for people to weigh in, but no one knew that this was happening. So they couldn't take advantage of opportunities that they did not know existed because they did not know they were impacted. And it just simply should not be the case that a project of this size can go through without some kind of notification of the people who are directly impacted by it, and to such a degree that it's really astounding. The other piece, there's a buffer requirement that got drastically reduced for this zoning. 50 feet used to be the minimum buffer. 50 feet of original vegetation, undisturbed, was the minimum under the old zoning. And now it is the maximum that can be requested. They do not have to have any buffer whatsoever between this extraordinary level of 21.8 units per acre and your existing, say, single-family home. Or conservation land trust, which is also in that area. There are other pieces of that original zoning that were really helpful in terms of just vetting the process. Professionally, I'm an architect. I understand these kinds of development processes. Often I'd be the one drawing the plans and then explaining them to people. I can say that this process has been remarkable for its lack of transparency, specifically this 86 Orchard Hill Park Drive project. The plans are vague and completely undetailed in areas that are concerning. And it's hard to push for more because we don't have any kind of tools to lean on administratively. There's no requirement for the special permit. We've routinely heard our boards tell us as citizens as we bring concerns that their hands are tied because they don't have more tools at their disposal. These things are just permittable by right. It makes it very hard as a resident to feel that your voice matters because you stand up and you're told, well, yeah, we hear your concern, but we can't do anything. This is an opportunity for this council to recognize that our city's residents are deeply invested in this city. We have our entire economic future here in our homes that we have vested collectively many hundreds of years in this city. We're proud to be residents of the city. I can say that that pride personally has taken a huge hit lately. I'm not pleased with the way that the residents have been treated, and I don't like hearing when we raise our concerns that the problem is with us. It is not with us. The problem is with the system that we're trying to work within. This is a great tool to just help a little bit, because we're not saying that reverting back to the old zoning means you have to stay at that old zoning. If we need to take some responsible steps to alter that previous zoning, perhaps to address the industrial component that we've heard is a problem, then let's look at that. But let's not look at that before we revert the zoning back to where it was, because a lot of things can happen between when that gets worked out and right now, when we have the opportunity to kind of put a stopper in the bottle and not let things get too far out and down the road. It's my opinion that moving back to that original zoning is really the only responsible choice. But then I would welcome the opportunity for the city and the city's council to really work with residents in this area and craft some meaningful housing plans and You know, we want to be forward-thinking and not backpedaling on and reacting to what we're seeing happen. I'd like to see us really plan for the kind of housing stock that we need in the city, and I don't want to see it all land in one space, one few hundred acres of our city, which already has a big traffic problem. Let's look comprehensively at this. Zoning is a good tool. So if there are problems with our zoning, let's identify those problems, let's fix those problems specifically, but let's not let developers create the zoning fiasco that we have right now. And let's not then let them say, well, residents had their voice to say something and nobody did. The housing committee, and that was the word I was looking for before, was made up primarily of developers, as I understand it. I do know there were no residents on that housing committee. And for an area that's primarily residential, that's an issue. So sorry for the little bit of rambling, but my thoughts are, in summary, that we want transparency, we want tools and safeguards. The old zoning really helped us with that, and I think it makes the most sense to go back to it and address any needed changes on a very careful and forward-thinking way that's inclusive of all the city residents who are impacted. Thank you.
Jerry Millette, Sky Lane. I'm just going to touch on a few things. So as far as industrial mixed use, and this kind of affects the entire city, not just MU2 when I speak about this, all right? So a loss of eligibility for state economic incentives. By converting an area intended for employment-based development into one dominated by housing, Leominster effectively removes itself from priority eligibility for state programs such as Economic Development Incentive Program, MassWorks infrastructure grants, site readiness and one-stop for growth programs. These programs are explicitly geared towards commercial manufacturing and job-creating investment. Residential construction does not qualify for most of these funding sources. Leominster could lose access to millions in future state grants for infrastructure, site development, or industrial recruitment. Once the land is built out as housing, it can't easily be converted back for job creation. Also, it eliminates the potential job sites for advanced manufacturing, clean tech, or logistics firms, right? Makes cities more dependent on residential property taxes. It's basically going to turn us into almost a bedroom community because we've lost any industrial zoning. So we can look forward to tax situations being changed. Right now, we're relying on cherry sheets and property taxes. But at some point, the state's cherry sheet is going to come in short. And then where do you go? Right? Currently, it's roughly $18,000 a student in Leominster. In 2026, it's going to go up over $19,000. In 2027, it'll be higher than that. If we do away with the ability for someone to come in that's got industrial in mind, we're lost, right? They can go to the next town over. We're going to watch everybody else absorb industrial, clean tech, and everything else, even though we've got the highway access and so forth. That's all gone. We're going to rely on property taxes to make the difference or make up any substantial differences. So I'd like to see this reverse back to what it was and work from that point forward. And that's the only way we stay in business and compete against these other cities and towns. And I'll just keep it short and leave it there.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the public? Okay.
Thank you. For the record, Chris Rainier from Goulston and Stores, and Great job on my name. My last name is very tricky. Here this evening on behalf of Greg Lascotti and Lascotti Development Corporation to go on record in opposition of the proposed amendments. I'm sure the councilors have Director Wood's excellent and detailed memorandum to the Planning Board dated October 9th, 2025, concerning the history of the prior amendments of the MU2 district. If you don't, we can provide you a copy, but I'd urge you to read it. As summarized in that memo, and I won't go through all of it, the MU2 district is one that was originally created to set aside an area of the city for intensive development necessary to meet the city's needs. However,
Mixed use though, right?
since 2012...
Wasn't that mixed use? Mixed use, right?
Yes, I'm going to get to that, if I could give my testimony. Since 2012, the MU2 district has allowed multifamily uses as of right, including more intensive multifamily uses by special permit. However, for many years, including the approximately 20 years that Mr. Lascotti has owned land in the MU2 district, significant redevelopment did not occur. Further, in recent years, the Commonwealth and City have recognized there's a housing crisis and more housing is needed in the city. This lack of economic development and housing crisis prompted a careful and collaborative planning effort in 2024 to study these issues and resulted in zoning amendments being adopted in early 2025 to incentivize the creation of multifamily housing in the MU2 district. As part of that effort, the Housing Committee consulted the Montechusett Regional Planning Commission to understand what could be recommended. We won't go on to summarize all the excellent points made in Director Wood's memorandum. We think it important to emphasize that the prior zoning changes occurred after a planning study that involved the Montechusett Regional Planning Commission that were then recommended for approval 7-0 by the Planning Board, and then, as stated earlier, adopted 8-1 by this board, by this commission. The proposed amendments are not good planning, seek to undo this recent, well-planned, and thoughtful zoning effort, and should not be recommended for approval. They create a dangerous precedent for future redevelopment. How do other future developers commit significant time and resources to invest in efforts to seek approvals to develop if they think the zoning could be reversed so suddenly? Further, the proponents of the proposed amendment summarize the changes in the MU2 district in a general manner as reintroducing a special permit requirement and returning the zoning to what was before the recent amendments. This is an oversimplification. The amendment prohibits multifamily use on the first floor of a building, requiring instead that such first floor use include non-residential uses. As summarized in Director Wood's memorandum, the lack of demand for commercial uses in the MU2 district and the need for housing is what led to the recent zoning amendments, which allow multifamily projects to proceed without this first floor non-residential use. Lastly, current zoning requires site plan review and approval of development in the MU2 district for a variety of projects. As a result, almost every project in the MU2 district will go through site plan review. As was seen recently with the Wood Partners project, the site plan review is a thorough and rigorous review that it can include peer review and can go on for many months and result in project changes. As noted in Director Wood's memorandum, the special permit requirement was intentionally removed in the earlier zoning amendments in response to recommendations made by the Housing Committee in consultation with the Montechusett Regional Planning Commission. The site plan review process requires detailed plans and materials be submitted, including traffic impact statements. These detailed plans, materials, and studies allow the Planning Board to carefully consider a project's impacts, and as I said earlier, they can hire peer reviewers as they did, and those peer review comments can result in project changes. In sum, we urge the City Council not to approve the proposed amendments. They are not needed. The current site plan review requirements are detailed and require a thorough and rigorous process. And additionally, the amendments would undo recent thoughtful zoning changes and would be harmful to housing creation in Leominster. Thank you.
Dave Rowlands, 49 Braeburn Circle. You won't believe this, but I really wasn't going to plan to speak tonight until I heard that. Until I heard that. First of all, MU2 didn't exist 20 years ago.
No.
It existed when the zoning work was redone. And if you listen to my opposition, they'll tell you I'm the architect of MU2. I'm the author. I wrote it. I don't even want to go down that a little bit, but I'll just make this point. The original zoning was mixed use. It allowed only industrial and commercial. It was modified by New England Development, who developed Walmart, who changed the rules, as I explained before, and it turned, mixed use wasn't even a zone. It was a set of rules to be used on large industrial. That land stayed zoned industrial. A set of rules that were written by a UMass professor were modified by New England Development that allowed mixed use to be 100% commercial. That's what happened with the mixed use. That was flawed. The city, the mayor hired a planning company to come in 2012-13 timeframe and redo the whole city zoning. I was the legal affairs chair during that time. I was the chairman of that thing. They worked in that zoning for over a year. The company did. Quite frankly, they did a horrendous job. And one of the things they told us when they came here is, we're also working on Peabody. And after a year, I called up Peabody city clerk and I said, how's your zoning going? They said, horrendous. We've been 3 years and it hasn't passed. And I knew we were in trouble. So what I did as legal chair is I committed to going through that zoning document that they gave us. They were paid in full and left. And they gave us a document that was 196 pages long, and we reviewed it. And I know the Ward 3 councilor was a part of that process, because I was thinking today, I was going through my notes, how many hours and nights do we spend talking about chickens, right, and poultry? How many, can we have a rooster? Can we have a hen? Can we have a turkey? I mean, that's the level of detail we went through a 200-page document at. We removed 40 pages. My favorite story, the hospital overlay district had this in it. Any use you don't find in the table of uses is allowed by right in the hospital overlay district. Think about that. They could have put the horse track and the casino and a hotel and a gambling parlor and a nuclear power plant by right. We removed it. That's what the process was. So, yes, I was in support of then, and I still am now, residential in MU2. Let that be clear. I supported it. The petition, the zoning passed, by the way, after we reviewed it, we gave it to the planning board, it was unanimous, it came down here. It either was 8-1 or was unanimous, I don't remember, and it passed, and I supported MU2. The mayor signed off on it with residential, with restrictions. No problem. So if you want to call me the author of it, go ahead. It's nonsense. It was by committee. We voted on it. It was open, and we had a lot of people down here, including Mr. Liscotti, who had input in MU2. So what I'm asking for is go back to the original version. Why? Well, we'll talk about why. There's a lot of reasons why, but first we have to understand exactly what changed. Don't listen to the words, look at the actions. What was said so we know the process, as I've discussed this. On August 29th, there's a document that shows up in the Housing Committee. The name of that document is Suggested MU2 Changes from G. Liscotti, 29th of August. It's the absolute wish list of what you would want to do in MU2. There's no record of it in any of the minutes for the Housing Committee meeting. None. It's in their repository, and you stumble across it when you find it, but it's not in the minutes. 13 days later, Mr. Boyle, representing MRCP, takes this document and creates another one that's also in there. And he says, on the letterhead of Massachusetts, he says, as part of the review of the Leominster zoning ordinance, MRPC has investigated the requirements for residential development in the MU2, and he basically puts a document forth about all the zoning changes, and they're almost verbatim what Mr. Liscotti submitted. Almost verbatim. Now, there was no meeting from when this 29th meeting happened to when this document came out. There's no meeting. And the significance here is really, really big. Because if a developer comes down in front of this body and says, hey, I want a zoning change, you know what their impetus is. What they want maximum value. That's their purpose. I understand it. They want to make as much money as they can. But when it comes through a city official, they're following the standards of what zoning is. That is, I mean, it's outlined in the zoning document, basically a balance between protecting the integrity of the neighborhoods, quality growth, protecting the Leominster's, the quality of life for Leominster residents. So that's a big deal. You take the developer's wish list and you put it on a letterhead and you submit it to the housing committee and to the planning director. And we had the gentleman down here. He spoke the other night at the planning board. And you know what he said? One, we purposely pulled the special permit. We didn't want it in here because we followed the state. What did the state do with ADUs? And what did they do with the MBTA housing? They took out the special permit. So we did the same. We wanted the same thing here. We took it out. And now the special permit was only allowed for the higher density. You could have built without that, but still, there was a special permit for the higher density. We wanted that out, he said, because he didn't want the residents to come down and influence the board and stop it. That's what he said. That's a city official who's representing the city. He was hired as a contractor to represent the planning board, comes down to the microphone and says, hey, we had that on purpose. Now, we all complain. All I hear about is the complaints about the state saying, stuffing down our throat ADUs, not giving the cities the ability to modify those, stuffing down our throat the MBTA with no rules, ability to change the rules. Now we have local officials doing that to us? You're going to follow that role? That you're going to tell, let's take the voice of the residents of the city out, so when they come down to talk, they can't stop a project. And it wasn't about stopping the project. It was about having input on the scale of the project. I mean, that's openly said. And what he says is, I follow orders. That's quote. Well, I'm a little bit of a history buff, and I can tell you through the annals of history, that doesn't hold up as a great excuse. But it raises the question, whose orders? What were the orders? That right there is a fundamental, and the thing that drives me crazy about that is when Miss Wood, I feel, and I've said this multiple times, I feel sorry that she was put in a position. Here's the person that knew everything about it, wrote it, knew that he wanted to get rid of the special permit. Where was he during that night? This process would have been very clean, very open, and very transparent. You come down here and you say, the developer has these changes that he wants to build a project of this scale. We need to get this petition passed so he can build this scale. Now you know exactly where you stand and you can make a decision. That didn't happen, and I think it was intentional. So what did the developer want? He wants 40 acres, removed limitation. There was a requirement you can't build on more than 40 acres, 1/3, to promote mixed use. Nobody's going to develop their land in industrial at a much lower rate when they can develop at super high density in residential. Nobody's going to do that. So you have to limit the different uses to make sure that you save some for job creation and industrial use. So what did the developer say? 40 acres of residential development is not enough. I want the zoning changed so that I can have the entire site be residential. 82 acres, add another 42 acres of residential development to it. I want more. While we're pursuing a grant, a legal grant, I'm not going to get down that silly rat hole. We're pursuing a legal grant to build a road to an industrial complex. That road isn't even accepted, and the developer's working on the side to say, hey, I want to be able to build residential over the entire thing. Think about that for a minute. The other thing is buffers. We heard that. You know, this could have been 12.4 acre site, 100-foot buffer for the neighbors, 40 acres. You basically would have had a Brooks Pond up there by right. That's not small. That's not insignificant. That's real. And that's what would have been allowed. Not enough. Now we want 82 acres pure residential. We want density that is 21.8 by right. Now, this is another spin you'll see that's out there now. Oh, look at this project that's before us. It's only 294 acres. They're not even using the 21.8. They're not even using that. So this is something that he would have got almost anyways. Yeah, you know why? He's put the clubhouse in. He put the pool in. He put the postal room in. right? Of course you didn't get all the unit density in this first one. You're saving it for later. He didn't just change it to be 21.8 because he thought it was a good number. He's got 37 more acres in that one subdivision. That's another 800 units density. He doesn't need to build a pool and a clubhouse in those. He's got those. And he's going to add 300 onto that 800. He's going to have at least 1,000 units on the one subdivision. That's 2 Brooks Ponds plus. Think about the scale of that. And Brooks Ponds is another whole beast because it's a 55-year, that's another whole story, but I'm just trying to set the scale of how big this place is. I ask you to support the petition going back for several different reasons. It's a bad precedent. You can't reward that process. You cannot reward that process and let it sit. I think there's a lot of gall when the lawyers come and say, hey, you can't change it back. This is crazy to me. You came in with this process, you went around, you handed this little wish list to somebody, you get it passed, and then you come back and say, oh my goodness, if you change it back, oh, it's going to create all havoc. No developer's going to come here. We got the premier access, highway access off of Route 2, off of 190. They're coming. They're coming here. Let's not let these guys scare us with that. Other reasons to vote for it. There is. You can't leave 21.8 acre density by right on the zoning books. You can't. That's crazy. And you know what? 10 years from now, when maybe all of us are in a different place, somebody's going to come down here and say, hey, can you just make this little tiny tweak to the zoning for me? I just want the same density that they got over in Orchard Hills. And everybody say, yeah, that seems to make sense. And next thing you know, you got a mess. You can't let these things happen where they are on the books and they're wrong. I would ask, in looking at this, in making this vote, first of all, if your reason was, this was a Ward 1 problem. I gave respect to the Ward 1 counselor. It's in his backyard. If that was your reason the first time, I ask you to honor that reason the second time. It's in his backyard. He's living with it, and the next court counsel is going to live with it. And if they're saying, hey, I think it, I didn't have all the information. I didn't make the right decision. I want to do it. I commend him for that. He asked a legitimate question that night. How many units is this going to add? And he didn't get the right answer. He did not get an answer about density. So I ask, if your initial vote was in deference to the Ward 1 council, that you be consistent with that. I ask if you receive support in other wards, if your other neighborhoods and your other wards were under attack. In Ward 1 and the entire city supported you, I ask you for your support this time around. And here's another issue. We all know this, half the city business is done on social media. I despise it, to be honest with you. And there's a lot of things said and a lot of people are angry. I understand that. I'm angry. And I've lived as being attacked and being the attacker on social media, and I'm trying to change my habits. I almost responded to all the silliness I saw on this, and I said, hopefully I've gotten past that. You got to be pretty thick-skinned. And I understand you're angry at some of the comments. State that anger. Correct the falsities that are being out there, but don't make that anger the reason for the vote against this. It's about what's best for the city. And so for those reasons and many more, I just simply ask that you support this. Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, Spencer Holland, counsel for Wood Partners, the developer of the multifamily project at 86 Orchard Hill Park Drive. So because the permitting for that project clearly seems to be the kind of the impetus for this proposed amendment, I'd like to begin just by providing a very brief review of that process. As this council may know, my client's site plan review application was originally filed in March and was approved just last week. Over the course of the intervening 7 months and throughout 5 planning board hearings, Wood Partners worked diligently to address every concern that the board and peer reviewers raised. Wood Partners extended the deadline for planning board action to more than double the prescribed time period. This rigorous process led to changes in the project, large and small. Wood Partners decreased the total number of units. It made changes addressing various issues such as snow storage, dumpster locations, stormwater management, buffer areas, fencing, and many more. Wood Partners also agreed to a significant mitigation payment to help address community concerns about pedestrian safety after determining it was not feasible to install sidewalks along Harvard Street. Now, as things go with multifamily projects, both near and far, neighbors came out to voice their opposition. Many, not just to limited elements of the project, but to multifamily housing at the site generally. Now, that in and of itself is not common at all. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a multifamily project like this where there isn't that type of opposition. But what is both uncommon and disconcerting is how this proposed zoning amendment has emerged as a reactionary measure to the project. Now, as chronicled in Planning Director Wood's detailed report, 8 months of careful, deliberative review and consideration of how to best address the city's housing needs led to the current MU2 zoning provisions. And now that there's public reaction to the exact type of development those provisions were designed to invite, there is a rushed 11th hour attempt to unring the bell. Zoning amendments targeting and reacting to specific projects are wholly inconsistent with sound long-term planning. If enacted, this amendment would also have a harmful chilling effect on investment in Leominster more broadly, far beyond this project, this site, and this zoning district. The basic assumption that a project proponent can rely on a city or town honoring its zoning ordinance or bylaws is the essential precondition to all development. Now, community input is a critical ingredient in many aspects of permitting procedure, and we saw just that in the lengthy site plan review process. But if the zoning rules wander off whenever there is a perceived shift in local sentiment, or when the voices in the room get loud enough, confidence in the process is lost. Now, since 2012, again, according to Director Wood's report, the MU2 zoning district has allowed multifamily housing. And yet, the elephant in the room is that there has been no housing development here. This council, through its near unanimous vote, changed that. Since the adoption of the current zoning, Wood Partners has conscientiously pursued this project, a use allowed as of right in the MU2 district, a project that aligns with the local and statewide priority on new quality housing. Wood Partners should not have to proceed under the auspices of pre-existing non-conforming status and bear the weight of the implications that status entails. Nor should Wood Partners have to rely on legal interpretations of recent legislation amending 40A concerning its protected status. Besides time, Wood Partners has incurred significant expenses in this pursuit, well into the six figures, covering due diligence costs, engineering work, municipal permitting fees, peer review costs, all in reliance on the basic premise that when a city adopts a zoning provision, through a thoughtful, deliberative process, it applies that zoning provision. This amendment stands to undermine that premise. It would shift the goalposts for Wood Partners now, and it would erode the trust of would-be investors in Leominster moving forward. I ask that this council stand for the integrity of the city's zoning and oppose this amendment. Thank you.
Melissa Bible, 178 5th Street in Leominster. I'm also the director of a housing authority in another community where we have 41 units of low-income housing currently under construction. That community is a town, and when the community is allowed to be involved, my community voted 100% to support our development. This community, at all the meetings that I've been at, has not been against housing. It's been against the amount of housing that's being constructed. A couple things. I think we need to put a tamper on things because you're hearing the frustration amongst the community. This plan is not perfect. The state in Leominster is in a housing crisis. If you go to the housing courts, if you go to masscourts.org and you see the amount of evictions that are happening on a daily basis, we are in a housing crisis. There is a need for housing, but it needs to be safe, it has to be responsible, and this project is not. I think you need to look at what a housing committee is going to look like, considering that we're in a crisis, and I think the city council needs to take a real look at forming a housing committee based on the crisis that we're in, and within that should be representatives and neighbors in the communities, the police, the fire, the schools, the housing authority, and other partners that are going to feel the impact of construction. This housing is needed, but you need to take a look at all the partners that need to be involved and not just the development partners. Lastly, I think we also need to take a look at sustainability. There's no mention of solar power. There's no mention of solar credits, what could be given back to the communities. That can also happen in construction, and there's been no mention of that in any of the planning meetings either. Thank you.
If you'll indulge me a second time, Liz Macarella, 75 Harvard Street. I just wanted to respond a little to the most recent lawyer who stepped up here. The zoning changed in the city council meeting in January. In March, 2 months later, the Orchard Hill Park development proposal was submitted for site plan approval. 2 months. I can tell you professionally, they did not come up with those drawings in 2 months. That was a very long process. They were counting on that zoning to be changed. As to the tone, as you spoke now, the tone of the residents in responding to that project has not been anti-housing. We have made it a point to state over and over again, we are not anti-housing. We are for responsible growth with community involvement. And of course, that petition to change the zoning came directly after the Orchard Hill Park project was submitted for site plan approval. As I just said, it was submitted only 2 months after the zoning changed. There was no requirement for abutters to be notified of that project, let alone of the zoning change. People who did become aware of the Orchard Hill Park project spread the word. And people's collective thought was, how could that be? How could this be allowed? And that led us to look at the zoning and to find out that the zoning had just changed. So as soon as we knew, we took action. But this project was in the works before the zoning changed. There's no practical way for it to have been otherwise.
Madam Chairwoman, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we need to open the regular meeting.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And then we'll go right back to the public hearing.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will now conduct a roll call of the councilors in attendance. Councilor Cormier?
Present.
Councilor Ardinger?
Present.
Councilor Noseworthy?
Present.
Councilor Tossi?
Present.
Councilor Shalafo-Zephyr?
Present.
Councilor Robbins?
Present.
Councilor Frida?
Present.
And I shall be marked as present. I'll move now to the approval of records. We're going to actually ask that the records be continued to the next meeting, and we will address it at that time.
I'll make a motion for a recess.
Second.
Having the motion, having seconded, we are now in recess. Madam Chairwoman?
Thank you very much. I just want to go back to a couple of things that have been said. The two attorneys at the podium talked about careful and collaborative planning. That's quote. They talked about thoughtful and deliberative, that this was not thoughtful and deliberative, I guess in contrast to what the original zoning change was, characterized as that, which is just crazy. Planning study from the MRPC. I never saw a planning study. I don't know that anybody else on the city council saw a planning study. We had a person representing the planning board come down to that public hearing on that zoning change and couldn't answer simple questions about density. Couldn't answer simple questions about, buffer zones. Couldn't answer simple questions about, well, how big is that lot? And so for all of those reasons, and then also in talking about site plan review is subject to the zoning conditions, the zoning ordinance under which the site plan review is taking place. So site plan review, as we have seen over the multiple planning board meetings, is they're constrained by those limited buffers, 50-foot maximum buffer. Really? And, there was another note here that I wanted to talk about, lengthy site plan review. Anyways, I just wanted to make those points. The process the city council was a part of was not thoughtful, it was not deliberative, it was not careful, and it certainly was not collaborative. There was no collaboration. Nobody came down here. The MRP person, as we spoke, was missing at that meeting. I don't know why, but the planning director came down and really could not answer simple questions. So again, that's why this is such a problem. And the details were not known to anybody on the city council until that site plan was put before the planning board. Okay? So I think that's really important for everybody to really think about. That's my comment. Is there anybody else in the audience who would like to speak?
Thank you for the second shot at this. Jerry Millette, Sky Lane. In regards to the two attorneys, what they didn't tell you is on this new build-out, there are no impact studies required. So this build-out can happen without any impact. We're not going to know any impact of what it's going to happen to the city, whether it's from the school system to the sewer system. We have no idea because he's removed that part of it. And again, it can't go forward based on this situation. When you remove that part of it, what do we have left?
The other note that I wanted to make mention of was 8 months of careful, deliberative review. I don't know which attorney said that, but that must have been in relation or characterizing the work that the Housing Committee did. The Housing Committee, as I think Mr. Rowlands pointed out, there was no information in any of the meeting minutes that there was any kind of consequential or substantive debate or discussion of the MU2 changes. They appeared and were submitted. So characterizing the process, I think we just need to be careful about. It wasn't thoughtful, it wasn't deliberative as far as I'm concerned, certainly not collaborative. Again, is there anybody in the public who would like to weigh in on petition 9-26?
Hello, Haley Bish, 219 Harvard Street. I'm just here to say I'm in support of the petition to reverse the MU2 zoning to what it previously was to help give more authority to the city and its residents. Building on the comments that we missed many opportunities to speak on these changes, we put our trust in the city to make those decisions, and when we saw that their power was taken, we wanted to help do what we could to address that and get that back and address the concerns of the resident, go back to the responsible development, and I hopefully believe that the petition would do that. Also building on the comments that this would deflect development from Leominster, I hope that this would show developers that this is, we want a partnership, and we have a community that shows up and shows face and that they want to build with us and not oppose us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peter Haggis, 333 Elm Street. I just want to reiterate two things and then add one more thing. The owner of the property has already pulled the mechanism to freeze this in place for 7 months, potentially 8 years if the definitive subdivision goes through. So as far as how they're impacted by this, potentially not at all. But the importance of this and what many of the other folks who have spoken have said, this doesn't need to be an all or nothing. When this rolls back, it gives an opportunity to look at MU2 in a more responsible way. If this is really about housing, there's a difference between the market rate housing that's going in and doing affordable housing, which is really serving our community members. I believe it's Mass Inc. They did a study earlier this year, and we have hundreds of folks in Leominster and hundreds more in surrounding communities that are what's called underhoused. It's elderly parents, it's adult children, it's folks that are cohabitating with, if they had the choice, they would have their own place to live. And that's why we need affordable housing in particular. And you have the tools to help facilitate that kind of construction. I mean, one example is, and that actually can help some developers, you can offer, if they do 5% or 10% affordable housing in a multi-unit structure, they can increase their density by 5% or 10%. That's just one example. There are other ways to encourage it. But if this is really about housing, let's roll it back and do it more responsibly to encourage that sort of growth.
Hey guys. Greg Thomas, 310 Leggett Hill Road. I'm here for one reason. I've watched what this has turned into online. I've looked at and seen all the personal attacks at people like Wendy Wilkes, Councilwoman Frida. I see a lot of blame being pushed onto the process. The fact was that the vote came to the city council. The city council decided to make that decision that night, and we need to accept that, as that's what happened. Blaming the process, blaming good people like Wendy, who served the city for years, and other people who volunteer is not the right thing. So I ask two things. One is, please take accountability for your decision. And two, condemn the personal attacks towards Wendy and other people like Councilor Frida. That's all I ask. And since you've spoken back to other speakers, I would like you to answer the question right here and there. Will you condemn those personal attacks towards Wendy and other people?
We're not going there. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be brief. I wanted to give the residents an ability to speak. I have the unique perspective of not having voted on this topic, as I was not a city councilor at the time. I am a proponent for responsible development. I am one of those people. I've got a 19-year-old and a 21-year-old who live in my house, and I live in a small raised ranch. I will leave it at that. I am concerned about density. Specifically, I'm concerned how it impacts our schools, where we will physically educate these children. Those of you who know me know that I am also a big proponent for quality public education and quality public special education. I'm concerned how this will impact public safety, including environmental safety. And the last and most important piece I'll speak to is that although I'm a newer counselor, I truly believe in transparency in any process. And no matter what I'll be voting on and no matter what I'll be speaking on, I will be doing everything within my purview to ensure that the public has a voice. And we need to have transparency, and we need to have your voice involved as early in the process, regardless of what we are discussing. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Okay, are there any other people in the public, any other folks in the public that want to weigh in on 9-26?
If you'll allow me, I'll be really brief.
Yep,
Haley Brady, 200 Harvard Street. I think this past year has been a whirlwind with the ADUs, with, the overlay districts, with this. We don't know what is going to come of that. Those overlay districts, we haven't seen the consequences yet. The ADUs, we also haven't seen the consequences. We got a little sneak peek of what the consequence of this in this one area will be. I thought it was really, I believe it was Chairman Bedanza that said, we took the overlay district and we split it up because we understand what a burden that would have been on Ward 1 and the traffic. But then we did this MU2 and it added such an even larger burden. We have the chance to at least pump the brakes a little bit in theory. Maybe, maybe not. This might have no effect at all. But we can't just leave it the way it is and say, well, we don't know what the future's gonna hold, but we're okay with this. Reset it back and at least give it a shot to, have some responsibility in the city, and we're growing very fast. Those small changes over the past year has allowed incredible growth. Let's slow it down, give our boards a few more tools to deal with that when they come up, ask for impact studies, find out what's going to happen to our schools or by right. All those tools are taken away from every commission and every board. Just give them the chance to get it back.
Okay, is there anybody else in the audience who wants to weigh in on 9-26? Okay, for a second time? Anybody want to weigh in? For a third time? Is any city councilors want to weigh in? Councilor David Cormier.
Thank you very much. I know you read into the record the response that we got from, just want to make sure, Goulston and Stores.
Yep.
I was just looking through my packet here. The mayor also sent a letter down today that has not been read into the record. I don't know if that should be
see that.
read in.
Let me see, did you
He
see?
actually dated it November 11th, but I think he meant the 10th. It was time-stamped today at 12:36 p.m.
I don't have it, Dave.
It was I was given it by the city clerk today in all my papers. I have it here if somebody wants to pass it along.
Okay. Is that, I just got a copy from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't have it in my material.
Councilor Shalfos, could you hang on just a second? Can I see the, is that the one that was, is that the same one we're discussing?
It should be. No, that's the one I had in mind.
Yes.
Thank you.
Someone going to read it into the record so we can hear it?
Oh.
I don't have it.
Oh, sure.
I'll read it into the record, sure.
You're hearing.
Yep, okay. This is dated November 11th, tomorrow, to the Leominster City Council Petition 9-26. Dear members of the Leominster City Council, I am asking that the Leominster City Council give the above matter further time. Considering the hostile manner in which the Legal Affairs Committee was conducted last week, I am asking the following. That the City Council take a formal vote with the names of people they want to attend a meeting on this matter. Under Section 3.6 of the City Charter, quote, the City Council may at any time require the mayor to provide it with specific information on any matter within its jurisdiction. The City Council may require the mayor to appear before it in person to respond to written questions presented to him, end quote. I am asking that all questions be submitted to Michelle Nadeau in my office by email 48 hours prior to the scheduled meeting. Michelle will disperse the questions to the appropriate staff person. If the meeting is on a Monday, the questions should be submitted by noon on the Thursday before. I will be scheduling a special council meeting on a date to be determined. Sincerely, Dean J. Mazzarella. Okay. All right. Do any other councilors have any comments or questions? Councilor Frida.
I have a lot of comments, but I'm going to keep them to myself. But the one thing I will say is that I have been trying since September. Every meeting, every further time we've given this Legal Affairs Subcommittee, I have asked to have Joe Boyle from the MRPC, John Souza, and Elizabeth Wood sitting at this table because they had the answers to the questions that we needed to ask. Mm-hmm. I asked, and I asked, and I asked, and we haven't had them down. The last meeting I was told, put it in writing, send them questions, and get the answers. That's not the transparency we're looking for. I can talk to them. I can get the answers. But we need to have them at the table. We need to ask the questions that people have had, and that's what we need to have, and we have not done that. So if you want to add that
through the chair
name.
to the at-large council, we did ask for Mr. Souza, the planning director, and the MRPC consultant. The city clerk reached out to all of those folks a few times,
And
right,
they
at least
refused
twice.
to come down?
This past time, they didn't answer me, so Ms. Wood told me that she would reach out to them, and then she had to leave today, so I don't know where that
Right.
landed, but
So-
nobody answered my request, no.
Right. So we will certainly reach out to them again.
So we should have been told, because I asked that. I asked that a number of times. Somebody should have told us, whether it's the clerk or you, that we didn't get an answer to that. So we'd all know that they're not coming down here.
I didn't know that they weren't going to show, actually. I
There
mean, I
were
thought-
times that they have been, just for the record, there are times that they have not answered and they have shown up to meetings. So to me, if you do not specifically tell me you are not coming to a meeting, I'm not telling the council you're not coming. That is not up to me to make that
No,
decision.
you could tell us that you didn't get an answer from them. And then we could have pushed them.
Okay,
All
we'll
right.
address that.
Thank you.
Madam
Chairwoman. Madam Chair, yep. Councilor Arndinger.
Thank you very much. I'm in agreement with the councilor, councilor at large, is that we need the other people, the key people sitting down here before us before we even vote on this petition.
Mhm.
And I'm going to, vote against the petition tonight, not because it's bad or not bad, I'm going to vote against it because I want to hear from Joe Boyle, the planning director, the chairman of the planning board. I want to hear from them and let them answer the questions. The two attorneys who were here tonight brought some very solid, questions that should be answered, and I want to hear more about it before I vote on it. So I'm going to vote against the petition tonight because I want more answers.
Mhm. Well, through the chair to the at-large counselor, my recommendation is going to be for further time because the full council is not here. And I think, in respect to the public, I think that they should have 7 city councilors on the record as voting on this petition however they want to vote. So that will be my recommendation. So at this point, you're welcome. You won't have to vote no on it tonight. And I will keep the public hearing open, and I'm going to give one last time. I don't see anybody. Okay. So at this point, Madam Chair, my recommendation would be to keep the public hearing open. And we can schedule the next public hearing, I guess, when we talk about it during the meeting.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
If I may, one of the questions I'd like to address, or I'd like to have addressed, I know it was mentioned about pre-existing non-conforming, so I'd like to understand where we stand with that as well. That's one of the things, if you want to add to your notes, that it's one of my questions is, for our attorney, is, their viewpoint on where we stand with that.
Certainly.
All set?
All right.
So at this
I'm
point,
Public hearing.
the public hearing
open.
is
Yep.
going to be left open at this period.
Continue. Yep, continue.
And we will deal with scheduling it later on the agenda.
Correct.
Before we go back into session, I just want to remind anyone that is here that if you're intending to leave at this point, because this is not going to go to a vote this evening, remember that we are going right back into session. So if when you leave, you can do it kind of quietly, and please don't hang around in the hallway because the microphones have a difficult enough time picking up our voices. So thank you for everybody in attendance.
Yep.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
appreciation. And actually, we are not back in regular session. We have another public hearing scheduled for 6:20 this evening, and I'm going to send that over to the chairman of Public Service.
Thank you, Madam President. This is a public hearing on petition 19-26, Massachusetts Electric Company doing business as National Grid and Verizon New England, Inc. requests permission to locate poles, wires, and fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public way. Ellen Street, National Grid to install one jointly owned pole on Ellen Street beginning at a point approximately 10 feet westerly of the center line of the intersection of Liberty Street and continuing approximately 15 feet in a westerly direction. National Grid is installing a push brace behind pole 5. Push brace will support pole after tree guy removal, Ellen Street, Leominster, Massachusetts. Location approximately shown on plan attached. Wherefore it prays that after due notice and hearing as provided by law, it be granted a location for and permission to erect and maintain poles and wires together with such sustaining and protecting fixtures as it may find necessary, said poles to be erected substantially in accordance with the plan filed herewithin marked Ellen Street, Leominster, Massachusetts, number 311-72509. My name is Brandon Robbins. I am the chair of the Public Service Commission, Counselor at Large Claire Frieda is the clerk, and Councillor Carrie Noseworthy is the third member. Do we have a representative of National Grid present? If you'd like to come up to the table, please.
Good evening.
Thank you, sir. Feel free to have a seat if you'd like. If you'd like to introduce yourself quickly and just give us a quick overview of the plan.
Of course. Good evening. My name is Lenny Martinez. I'm with National Grid. We'd like to install a push brace on pole 5 on Ellen Street because we are trying to remove a tree guy that is guyed across the road, and from my understanding, it is killing the tree. So trying to get that fixed before anything happens.
Thank you. I did take a ride by this earlier today. It looks like a pretty simple removal of the tree guy that goes across the street to a property across Liberty Street. Just for the record, I do want to make note that a resident reached out to the city clerk with some concerns. I reached out to National Grid in advance just because she couldn't be here tonight about her shrubs because there was reference to Ellen Street. National Grid assured me the shrubs will not be touched. That was communicated to the resident, and all of her concerns were assuaged. So I thank you and your team for a quick response on that. I don't have any questions for you, so I'll go to Councillor Frieda to see if she has any questions. Councillor Noseworthy?
No questions, thank you.
Wonderful. I'll go to the public. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak for or against petition 19-26? For a second time, is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of or against 19-26? For a third and final time? Seeing none, I'll go to the other members of the council. Any questions? Thank you so much for coming out tonight and answering our questions, and I'll move that we close the public hearing.
Thank you so much.
1 second, sorry, Councilor Frieda.
Before we do that, I think we should read that woman's email into the record.
I can do that. Pull it up.
I have her email if that's...
Councilor Noseworthy, do you have it up?
Yes, I do. I can read it into the record.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Sure. So this was dated November 7th, 2025. Hello, I tried to get a hold of you this afternoon, but a public hearing notice I received, but unfortunately your phone number goes straight to a voicemail that isn't set up. I'm unable to attend the hearing on Monday due to work, and I cannot get out of it. I live on 95 Ellen Street and received a notice saying that National Grid was going to be doing work on the poles in the area, but it also mentioned tree removal. I do have a hedge on the front of my property that has been there since I purchased the home, and I know that it's right on one of the poles on the street. I've just been trying to get a better idea of how much of my hedge will be removed. Of course, I don't want to obstruct the work that needs to be done, but I also don't want more than necessary removed. If you can give me any additional information, it would be greatly appreciated. Allegra Missildine, and she gives her phone number. I also just want to clarify for the record, when I call the constituent, she had been given my incorrect phone number, so I corrected that error, and we had a great conversation, and I spoke with her today. And when she heard that her hedges would not be touched, she was completely okay with the project moving forward. Thank you.
Just for continuity, I'll also read the National Grid response. It's dated today. Good morning, Elizabeth. The only pole being touched / replaced are poles 5 and 6 on Liberty Street. We will also be installing a push brace behind P5 Liberty Street. The tree in question is on the property of 63 Liberty Street, and the only thing we will be doing to that tree is removing the existing guy wire from P5 to the tree. The shrubs in front of 95 Ellen Street will not be touched. Hope that helps. So just for continuity and all of the information out there, those were the correspondences we received. With those in the record, I would suggest that we close the public hearing.
And that may be done. Moving on to the public forum. The public forum is an opportunity for any member of the audience to speak on a matter specifically listed on the council agenda. Speakers will be asked to come to the microphone and state their formal name and address, along with identifying the specific item or items they wish to address. Each speaker is respectfully asked to keep their comments within a 2-minute time frame. The council will not be responding or answering any questions. However, at the discretion of the council president, clarification may be given. We do have a one person on, that was Kurt Awasinian? Owenissian. Not even close. If you want to just take the podium, that would be fine.
Good evening, folks. My name is Kurt Owenissian. I'm the plant manager at Highline Warren on 163-165 Pioneer Drive. I've been there for just shy of 3 years now, and I have an amendment in for an above-ground storage tank use permit. In the agenda, I believe there is a typo. It discloses underground. It's an AST, an above-ground storage tank. This tank, I have an existing permit for use. What I'm doing is I'm gonna uninstall a 10,000-gallon tank and install a 35,000-gallon tank. This is specifically for propylene glycol. We manufacture automotive fluids. Rain-X is probably what you might be familiar with, but we as well do RV antifreeze and so winterizing boats, RVs, things of that nature. That's what this RV product would be used for. And one of the ingredients is propylene glycol. And our tank that we have right now is 10,000 gallons, and it forces a lot more points of failure in operation because I use tanker trucks for the fluid, to fill the tanks. And so with a smaller tank, I have more opportunities for there to be situations that occur. And as well, it has a relationship with my efficiencies at the plant. And so again, we have an existing use permit and above ground storage tank permit. I'm looking to amend the existing one. And then this tank would get installed, and then I would eliminate the 10,000-gallon tank.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council? And for a second time?
Just got a petition. Attorney Avini, relation to petition 2526. I'll be quick. You've heard enough about zoning tonight. We represent Horizon Self-Storage. We have a PNS with 21 Jungle Road, and we're looking for an amendment on the MU1 district for self-storage. We're fully aware there was a similar petition from this council about a year ago. It was withdrawn without prejudice. I'm just going to suggest to this council this is a different project in a different, more suitable location.
Thank you, Councilor Avini.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions, anything?
Where was it before? Where was the original? You said you moved it, or it's a better
No, we didn't
location?
move anything. This is a brand new purchase and sale agreement. So I represent Horizon Self-Storage. We signed a PNS with 21 Jungle Road LLC that owns 21 Jungle Road, right on the corner of Jungle Road and Mill Street.
Okay.
So it's right off of, 190 Route 2 interchange, across from the mobile station, Central Mass Oil Surgery, kind of sits back.
Okay.
The other one was being proposed on Harvard Street.
Harvard Street.
Yeah, that's what.
Right.
Okay.
So this is a whole different section of town.
Okay.
Let's read it.
Jeff, that's the old Tony Whitten property on the corner, correct?
I'm sorry, Tony.
Right, the old Tony Whitten property, it was originally Tony Whitten's
I don't know,
property?
we got the title done. I don't remember Tony Whitten in the chain of title.
Yeah.
It may have been the street. I don't know. There was a land swap with the city at one point in time there.
That's the corner,
Right,
yeah. Right across from Walmart, actually.
Yeah, right. There's a little gap between the Walmart
And
and
this
Mill
is
Street.
strictly storage, right? It's not...
Strictly automated self-storage.
Okay, no battery storage.
Well, to be fair, I understood there was maybe 2 meetings ago, somebody came in about battery storage. That was news to me. I don't know if that's going to come to fruition or not. I'm not involved in that part of it.
Well, it was Jungle Road battery storage, so I just want to clarify
Right.
that this is not, yours is not.
I'm not 100% clear on that right now.
Okay, that's, we need to clarify that.
Right. I found out about that maybe a week or so ago, so we're working on that part of it.
Thank you.
I know there was a petition, I think, 2 meetings ago
about battery self-storage. I believe 21 Jungle Road came up during that discussion, I believe. Right. I'm aware of that, I just don't know where it's at.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone for a third time, anyone who would like to speak at the public forum? Okay, seeing none, we are back in session, and we are going to start with communications from the mayor.
Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that Patricia and David LaPlante Scholarship Trust Fund for Leominster High School be established.
C-26 will be referred to the Chairman of Finance.
First time on the calendar, regular course.
C-27?
C-27, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that Patricia L. LaPlante Memorial Trust Fund for the Leominster Library be established.
And this matter will be referred to the Chairman of Finance.
C-27 is first time on the calendar, regular course.
And regular course can be granted. C-28.
Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that the tax classification hearing be held on November 24th, 2025.
And that will also be referred to the Chairman of Finance.
And C-28 is also given regular course. We need to establish a public hearing on the 24th of November. Madam Clerk, do you, 6:30 you think, okay? Or do you have a different time in mind?
Yeah, we don't have anything scheduled right now.
Okay.
For that night. Actually, I think we do have one scheduled for that night. 6:30, I think is fine.
6:30? Okay. All right, so we'll give this regular course and establish a public hearing on November 24th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m.
And you've heard the recommendation for a regular course and to establish a public hearing, November 24th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m.
I'd also like to just make it clear that we invite the assessors, thank you. I couldn't, slipping my mind. The assessors, any members of the assessor's office to come down, formally have them come down. I'm sure they're going to anyway, but just make it formal that they come down to the meeting. And I did ask today for our booklets. I have not received them, and I'm asking that they come sooner than later. Thank you.
Okay, that can be done. So regular course November 24th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. And we're going to send an invitation to the assessor's office, and we will be looking for our booklets prior to that. All those in favor of going to November 24th at 6:30, please signify in the usual manner. Any nays? Okay, by a vote of 8-0, that shall be done. On to petitions, first time on the agenda, 21-26.
Massachusetts Electric Company, DBA National Grid of North Andover, Massachusetts, that it desires to construct a line of underground electric conduits, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures under and across the public way or ways named. Wherever it prays that and after due notice and hearing is provided by law, it be granted permission to excavate the public highways and to run and maintain underground electric conduits together with such sustaining and protecting fixtures as it may find necessary for the transmission of electricity. Said underground conduits be located substantially in accordance with the plan filed here within marked Main Street, Leominster, Massachusetts. The following are the streets and highways referred to. Plan number 305-79379, Main Street, National Grid to install, beginning at a point approximately 31 feet south of the center line of the intersection of Green Street and Main Street, removing existing guy tree and installing 6-foot sidewalk guy on P15 Main Street.
And this will be referred to the Chairman of Public Service, Councilor Robbins.
Thank you, Madam President. Regular course, please, with referrals to both the DPW and the Leominster Police Department. And we need to schedule a public hearing, I assume, on November 24th at whatever time the clerk suggests.
text was at 6:30.
6:35 and
You want to go?
Yeah, just go.
6:35.
6:35. Wonderful. So regular course with referrals to the DPW, Leominster Police Department, and a public hearing on November 24th at 6:35 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, you've heard the recommendation on 2126 for regular course with referrals to the DPW and the Leominster Police Department, and a public hearing scheduled for November 24th, 2025 at 6:35 p.m. All those in favor, please recognize in the usual manner. Any opposed? By a vote of 8-0. That will be scheduled. Moving on to 22-26.
Massachusetts Electric Company, DBA National Grid of North Andover, Massachusetts, that it desires to construct a line of underground electric conduits, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures under and across the public way or ways herewithin named. Wherefore it prays that after due notice and hearing as provided law, it be granted permission to excavate the public highways and to run and maintain underground electric conduits together with sustaining and protecting fixtures as it may find necessary for the transmission of electricity and underground conduits to be located substantially in accordance with the plan filed herewithin marked Main Street, Leominster, Massachusetts. The following are the streets and highways referred to. Plan number 305-79379 Main Street, National Grid, to install beginning at approximately 30 feet south of the center line of the intersection of Morton Street and Main Street. Install a 6-foot sidewalk guy on pole 26 Main Street.
And this will be referred to the Chairman of Public Service.
Thank you, Madam President. Regular course with referrals to the DPW and Leominster Police Department, and a public hearing on November 24th at 6:36 p.m.
Very well. So 22-26 will be given regular course, referrals to the DPW and the Leominster Police Department, with a public hearing to be established for November 24th, 2025 at 6:36 p.m. All those in favor, please recognize in the usual manner. Any opposed? By a vote of 8-0. Moving on to 23-26.
Massachusetts Electric Company doing business as National Grid and Verizon New England Incorporated requests permissions to locate poles, wires, and fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public way. Main Street, National Grid to install one jointly owned pole on Main Street beginning at approximately 94 feet southeast of the center line of the intersection of Main Street and Priest Street. Remove existing tree guy. Install subpole 37-84, 70 feet southeast from pole 37, and sidewalk guy 4 feet off driveway. Wherefore it prays that after due notice and hearing is provided by law, it be granted a location for and permission to erect and maintain poles and wires together with such sustaining and protecting fixtures as it may find necessary, said poles to be erected substantially in accordance with the plan filed here within marked Main Street, Leominster, Massachusetts. Number 305-79379, October 13th, 2025, also for permission to lay and maintain underground laterals, cables, and wires in the above or intersecting public ways for the purpose of making connections with such poles and buildings as each of said petitioners may desire for distributing purposes.
And 23-26 is referred to the Chairman of Public Service.
Thank you, Madam President. Regular course, again, with referrals to the DPW and Leominster Police Department, and a public hearing on November 24th at 6:37 p.m.
Thank you. So you've heard the request on 23-26 to give this matter regular course.
Madam President, if I may, the other two were singly owned. This one is jointly owned with my employer, so just let the record reflect that I'm abstaining. Thank you.
And the record shall reflect. Again, 23-26, given regular course with the referrals to the DPW and the Leominster Police Department, and establish a hearing date of November 24th, 2025 at 6:37 p.m. All those in favor, please recognize in the usual manner. Any opposed? By a vote of 7-0, that may be scheduled. Moving on to 24-26.
Michael McEwen on behalf of Kurt Awasian. Owenissian, I am so sorry. Plant manager of Highland Wayland, 163 Pioneer Drive, Leominster, Mass. Requests a petition to obtain an above-ground fuel storage for 35,000-gallon storage tank to replace the 10,000-gallon tank currently at 163 Pioneer Drive and enlarge the containment area.
This matter is going to be referred to the Chairwoman of Legal Affairs.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I think before we do anything, we need to amend the petition so that it doesn't read underground because it's an above ground, as stated by the plant manager. So I make a recommendation that underground is deleted and above ground is added in that place.
So you're finally asking for a motion right now?
Yeah.
That the underground portion, it's written in there twice, be amended to above ground. Do we have a second? Councilor Arndinger seconds it. All those in favor, please recognize in the usual manner. And David, did you vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And none opposed, so by a vote of 8-0, 24-26 will read as amended, replacing underground with above ground.
My recommendation would be regular course with referrals to the Leominster Fire Department and the DPW, and we do need to schedule a public hearing on this. I think the 24th is going to be really busy, so I would look at the first meeting in December.
December 8th.
Just 12/8, I think, right?
Right now, we have one at 6:30 for the battery storage, but that's
And what time is that, Liz?
6:30.
6:30? Why don't we say maybe 6:20?
Okay.
I think that could go a little long, 6:20.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation from the Chairwoman of Legal Affairs on 24-26 to give this regular course with referrals out to the Fire Department and the Department of Public Works, with a public hearing to be scheduled on December 8th, 2025 at 6:20 p.m. All those in favor, please recognize in the usual manner. Any opposed? By a vote of 8-0, the amended petition will be scheduled. Moving on to 25-26.
Attorney Jeffrey Aveni, Dombrowski, Aveni, and Bonnell, PC, request to amend Section 22-17 as to underlying zoning districts table of uses for the City of Leominster zoning ordinance as amended and under the business uses table of uses in the multi-use MU1 underlying zoning districts and change the use so designated as self-storage from and not allowed to special permit planning board, SPPB, planning board special permit required. Pursuant to the City of Leominster zoning ordinance, self-storage is categorized as a business, but is only used in the industrial zoning district. Introduction, 21 Jungle Road LLC, hereinafter Jungle Road, is the owner of 21 Jungle Road, Leominster, Mass. As same in reference as map ID 31, parcel 1, hereinafter the premise. Jungle Road has entered into a purchase and sales agreement with Horizon Storage Group LLC, hereinafter Horizon, for the purchase of the premise, contingent upon Horizon receiving all necessary approvals and permits for the construction of a self-storage facility on the premise. The premise is an ideal site for self-storage based on its proximity to Route 2 and Route 190. The premises is located in an area that is for most part commercial or industrial in nature. There are no residential uses that abut or are in the vicinity of the premises. As part of this petition, please see narrative by Horizon Storage Group LLC as to the proposed use of premises as Exhibit A, concept site plan as Exhibit B, and Example A architectural renderings and as Exhibit C.
And this will be referred to the Chairwoman of Legal Affairs.
Thank you very much. My recommendation is regular course with referrals to the Planning Board, KP Law, and the Leominster Fire Department. And we need to schedule a public hearing. So again, we'd look at the first meeting in December 12/8.
We have 6:20, 6:30. You want to go after or before?
6:20, 6:30. Yeah, we can go after.
Okay.
6:40.
6:40. Okay, you've heard the recommendation of Legal Affairs on 25-26 for regular course with referrals to the Planning Board, KP Law, and the Fire Department. and to schedule a public hearing on December 8th, 2025 at 6:40 PM. All those in favor, please recognize in the usual manner. Any opposed? By a vote of 8-0, that may be granted. Moving on to matters before the City Council. We have nothing, and then we have coming up to the financial report.
Thank you, Madam President. For the stabilization fund, we began on July 1st, 2025, with a balance of $24,130,697.77. We've earned interest in the amount of $174,186.94. Provided that the four communications that are on there tonight for a vote do pass, we will have spent $2,077,000, and that will leave us with a balance of $22,227,884.71. The capital stabilization began on July 1, 2025 with $4,593,191.62. We spent $2,261,190 so far, and that leaves us with a balance of $2,332,001.62. In the opioid stabilization fund, we began with a balance of $577,545.87. We have spent $248,144.11, leaving us with a balance of $329,401.76, and that is the financial report.
Any discussion or any questions on the financial report? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Moving on to C-22.
C-22, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests an appropriation of $250,000 be made to the Police Department overtime account, the same amount to be transferred from the stabilization fund. We have a letter dated October 15th, 2025 from Chief Ryan Malatis. He explains that over the last 4 months, their overtime budget has been depleted from investigations, contractual obligations for time off, and city events. I would also like to effectively forecast overtime for the upcoming holiday season. As a result, I request $250,000 in additional overtime. Thank you for your consideration. So I think this is, just part of the operations of the city. Be my recommendation that we grant C-22, and I'll ask you to check with the other member of my committee.
Councilor Tossi?
I agree.
Okay, you have heard the unanimous recommendation of the sitting members of the Finance Department, the Finance Committee, to grant C-22. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please recognize in the usual manner. Any opposed? By a vote of 8-0, C-22 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Yes, Madam President. Ordered that the sum of $250,000 be made to the Police Department overtime account, the same amount to be transferred from the stabilization fund. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request to adopt the order. All those in favor, please recognize by saying yay.
Yay.
Opposed? Hearing none, that may be ordered by a vote of 8-0. Moving on to C-23, Mr. Chairman.
C-23, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requested an appropriation of $25,000 be made to the Department of Public Works overtime account, the same amount to be transferred from the stabilization fund. We have a letter from Ray Racine indicating that this appropriation will be used to cover general overtime expenses, including necessary police details and special event coverage for the remainder of the 2026 fiscal year. I did have a quick conversation today with Mr. Racine, and they're running low. Obviously, a lot of work is being done, as we all know from hearing about traffic snarls and whatnot. So there's been a lot of police details used for doing drainage and so many other projects in the city. So it'd be my recommendation that we grant C-23, and I'll ask that you check with the other member of my committee.
Councilor Tossi?
I agree.
Okay, you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-23. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-23, please recognize in the usual manner. Any opposed? Seeing none, by a vote of 8-0, C-23 has been granted. Mr. Chairman, do you have an order?
Yes, Madam President. Order that the sum of $25,000 be made to the Department of Public Works Highway Overtime Account, the same amount to be transferred from the Stabilization Fund. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the motion for the adoption of the order. All those in favor, please recognize by saying yay.
Yay.
Any opposed? By a vote of 8-0, C-23 is ordered, I'm sorry. Moving on to C-24.
C-24, Dean J. Mazzarola, Mayor, requests that an appropriation of $50,000 be made to the Fire Department ALS Services Overtime Account, the same amount to be transferred from the Stabilization Fund. We have a letter here from the Fire Chief, Robert Sidlow, October 23rd, 2025. The Fire Department requests a sum of $50,000 for overtime costs for paramedics. I am requesting that this amount be transferred at discretion of the Comptroller's Office. Thank you for your continued support. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to contact my office. As I always explain, it is the policy, or it has been the policy of the administration since they hired paramedics. We have 4 fire department shifts. There are 2 paramedics per shift, but there are, so that would be a total of 8, but there are only 7 positions filled. The other position, they have chosen, they think it's more cost-effective to fill with overtime, so this overtime represents that other position, as well as filling shifts with overtime if someone is out sick or, taking time off. So I think this is pretty standard. We've, been told that this is how they plan to operate for the foreseeable future, and it'd be my recommendation that we grant C-24, and I'll ask that you check with the other member of my committee.
Counselor Tossi?
I agree.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-24. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Robbins?
To the Finance Chair's point, I would like to do as I did during the budget, express my support for hiring that 8th paramedic. I understand that is how the administration has chosen to do business. I just continue to feel that this is a high-intensity job, and filling that with overtime, as is the police and fire, but this is a much smaller unit of people that we're talking about to pull from, so continuing to hire with overtime must be taxing our 7 paramedics. I will support it because I understand the importance, but at some point, I hope we can get this in the budget. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Counselor Noseworthy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be brief. I just want to agree with the counselor at large. Although it might be, financially appropriate to do this, I do worry about the toll it takes on our staff, and I just hope at some point we do hire that 8th paramedic. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Noseworthy. Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance to grant C-24. No further discussion. All those in favor, please recognize in the usual manner. Any opposed? By a vote of 8-0, C-24 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Yes, Mr. President. Order that the sum $50,000 be made to the Fire Department ALS Services Overtime Account, the same amount to be transferred from the Stabilization Fund. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the motion to adopt the order. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please recognize by saying yay.
Yay.
Those opposed, by a vote of 8-0, that shall be ordered.
And Madam President, C-25 involves regular fire department overtime, in which I have an immediate family member and I must abstain.
Okay, you're recused from C-25. We're going to send it over to the last standing member of Finance, C-25, Counselor Tossi.
Sure. C-25, Dean Mazzarella requests the appropriation of $250,000 be made to the Fire Department Public Safety Overtime Account, the same amount to be transferred from the Stabilization Fund. I do have a letter here from Chief Sidlow. I'd like to read into the record.
Thank you.
The fire department requests a sum of $250,000 for overtime costs. The fire department's overtime spent to date is related to normal contract obligations. 2 members requiring duty, injury coverage, long-term military activation and drills, recalls for residential fires, and mutual aid. The overtime fund requested will be used for the above reasons, along with normal vacancies caused by sickness, personal leave, and vacation leave. I am requesting the amount to be transferred at the discretion of the Controller's Office. Thank you for your continued support. Should you have any questions or concerns regarding any of the above, please feel free to contact this office. Robert Sidlow. Okay, so be my recommendation to grant C-25, and there's nobody in my committee left, so not sure.
Thank you, Councilor Darcy. You've heard the unanimous recommendation of Finance to grant C-25. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please recognize in the usual manner. Any opposed? By a vote of 7-0, and we're noting that Councilor David Cormier has to abstain. That may be done. And does the acting chairman of finance have an order?
Yes, I do. I order for the adoption of 200, or is it adoption? Yep, the adoption of $250,000 be made to the police. No, that's the wrong one.
Is it the wrong one?
Yeah. I got it here. Dave, stay away. The adoption of $250,000 be made to the Fire Department Public Safety Overtime Account, the same to be transferred from the Stabilization Account.
You've heard the motion for the order to grant C-25. All those in favor, please recognize by saying yay.
Yay.
Any opposed? By a vote of 7-0, that order shall be adopted. Moving on to Ways and Means, we have nothing listed under Ways and Means, and we are moving on to Legal Affairs and 3-26.
Petition 3-26, Glenn Eaton, Executive Director, Montechusett Regional Planning Commission, request to amend the zoning ordinance to replace Article 15, accessory apartments, with a new Article 15 that complies with recently passed state law and make other changes to implement the new ordinance. So this, we had a public hearing on it when? When we had the public hearing? Oh, in early September, 9/8/25. We continued it to 10/14, and we sent, I think it was Mr. Boyle, back with a couple of minor changes. It was really just getting the language consistent about accessory dwellings or accessory apartments and things like that. My understanding is that it's gone back to the planning board. They're making further changes. So I guess we could do one of two things. We could ask the planning board, right, we could ask the planning board for any new information. The planning board, I think, had their public hearing on 11/3, on November 3rd, so last week. So I haven't seen anything from the planning board. We don't have anything new from the planning board, right?
Not pertaining to this, I don't believe.
Okay.
Some other stuff, but not this.
All right, so I guess I would ask the clerk to check with the planning board to see if there's any update.
Okay.
This is already, we had continued it to November 24th. So I guess we can keep that hearing on November 24th at 6:20 p.m. So my recommendation would be further time with the public hearing already scheduled.
So you've heard the recommendation of, would you like me to check with the members of your committee?
Certainly.
Councilor Darcy?
I agree.
Okay. So you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to grant 3-26 further time, with a public hearing already being continued to November 24th, 2025 at 6:20 p.m. and we're going to send out invitations to Mr. Boyle and request further information from the planning board if they have any updates, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, all those in favor, please recognize in the usual manner. Any opposed? By a vote of 8-0, that can be done. Moving on to 9-26.
9-26, Susan Shalafu Zephyr, Brandon Robbins, Councilors at Large, Ward 1 Councilor Robert M. Tossi, and 10 registered voters. Request to amend the zoning ordinance pertaining to MU2 zoning. So we had our public hearing opened earlier this evening. We continued that public hearing to 11/24/25. We need to schedule that. So my recommendation at this point would be further time. And I ask you check with my committee, and also a reminder, or I would through the chair to the city clerk, if she would reach out to those same invitees again. Thank you.
Just for clarity on the record, we are sending that out to?
We are sending that out to the planning director, the planning board chair, and the MRPC city's consultant, Mr. Boyle.
And to Mr. Boyle.
Yep.
Just so that we're clear.
Yep.
Okay, Councilor Tossi?
I agree.
Okay, you've heard the unanimous recommendation on 9-26 to grant further time and to continue this public hearing to November 24th at...
We didn't.
Oh, did we?
Thought we did.
Oh, we didn't give it a time.
No, we didn't. Yep. That's my mistake.
So do you have a suggested time?
6 o'clock, 6 p.m. We're starting at 6:20, is that right?
We are,
Liz?
yes.
Okay, let's say 6 o'clock,
Okay.
please. Thank you.
Okay, so just to reiterate again, 9-26,
6 p.m.
we have a unanimous recommendation by the Legal Affairs Committee to, we've continued the public hearing to grant further time on 9-26. We're going to renew our invitations to the planning director, the board chair, and Mr. Boyle, and we're going to schedule a public hearing for November 24th at 6 p.m.
Correct. Thank you.
All those in, is there any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please recognize in the usual manner. All those opposed, by a vote of 8-0, that may be established. 15-26.
Okay. 15-26, Elizabeth Wood, Director of Planning and Development, on behalf of the Planning Board, request to amend the zoning ordinance pertaining to battery energy storage systems. So this, we did give this further time previously. That would be my recommendation again, and we have already continued the public hearing to December 8th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m.
Okay, this is on 15-26. The request is for further time, with the public hearing already being scheduled for December 8th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor, please recognize in the usual manner. By a vote of 8-0, 15-26 has been granted further time. Now we will send this under public service. We will send this to the chairman of the Public Service Committee, 19-26.
Thank you, Madam President. 19-26, Massachusetts Electric Company doing business as National Grid and Verizon New England, Inc. request permission to locate poles, wires, fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public way. Ellen Street, National Grid to install one jointly owned pole on Ellen Street beginning at a point approximately 10 feet westerly of the center line of the intersection of Liberty Street and continuing approximately 15 feet in a westerly direction. National Grid is installing a push brace behind pole 5. Push brace will support pole after tree guy removal, Ellen Street, Leominster, Mass. Location approximately as shown on plan attached. We had a public hearing on this matter earlier this evening where Mr. Martinez from National Grid spoke to the issue. Additionally, a issue brought to our attention by a resident was read into the record that was resolved. When this first was on the agenda and given regular course, we had asked the DPW and Leominster Police Department for referrals. On October 15th, we received a response in regard to this matter from Captain John Freyer that simply read, "No issues for the PD. They know they have to hire details when obstructing vehicular and pedestrian traffic." We did not receive a response from the DPW, but seeing it seems like it's a simple matter, my recommendation would be to grant this petition, and I would ask you check with the other members of the committee.
Councilor Freedom?
I agree.
Councilor Noseworthy?
I agree.
You have heard the unanimous recommendation of the Public Service Committee on 19-26 to grant the petition. I will note on this as well that Councilor David Cormier needs to abstain from this. So all those in favor, please recognize in the usual manner. Any opposed? By a vote of 7-0, 19-26 has been granted. Under new business, we have first reading of an ordinance, and that will go over to the chairwoman of Legal Affairs, Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Absolutely. First reading of an ordinance. This is, it's a very long one, so what I will do is I'll read the streets and the side of the street that's being changed, and I think that would suffice for the record.
Certainly.
Okay. And people, it's 3 or 4 pages long, and a lot of these changes were housekeeping kinds of things that Captain Frere was down here explaining, so they're not major changes. But so, in the year 2025, an ordinance, be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Leominster as follows: amending Chapter 13 of the revised ordinances entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic. Chapter 13, Section 13.6-62 of the revised ordinance is entitled Parking Meter Zones, 2 hours, is hereby amended by deleting such section in its entirety. Chapter 13 is further amended at Section 13-44, quote, same, between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. by inserting the following text. Central Street, west side from a point 100 feet southerly from the intersection of Pleasant Street. Central Street, west side from a point 345 feet from the intersection of Pleasant Street and Monument Square. Central Street, east side from a point 275 feet from the southerly corner of Eaton Place and Lancaster Street. Church Street, east side from West Street to the police station. Depot Square, west side from 25 feet from Water Street north to Merriam Ave. Main Street, east and west sides beginning at a point 100 feet from the intersection of Main and Mechanic Streets. Main Street, east side from a point 70 feet north from the intersection of Main Street and Merriam Avenue. Main Street, west side from a point 80 feet northerly from the intersection of Main Street and Merriam Avenue. Mechanic Street, north side from 275 feet easterly from the intersection of Main Street and Mechanic Street. Mechanic Street, south side from 245 feet easterly from the intersection of Main and Mechanic Street. Merriam Avenue, north side to a point 20 feet from the corner of Church Street to a point 20 feet from Grove Avenue. Merriam Avenue, south side from a point 70 feet easterly of the intersection of Main Street and Merriam Avenue, extending in an easterly direction to a point which is opposite to the intersection of the westerly side of Columbia Street and Merriam Avenue. Park Street, west side from a point 100 feet from the intersection of Park and Pleasant Street. Park Street, east side from a point 50 feet from the intersection of Park Street and Monument Square. Pearl Street, north side to a point 226 feet westerly of the intersection of Pleasant and Pearl Street. Pearl Street, south side to a point 82 feet westerly of the intersection of Pleasant Street and Pearl Street. Pleasant Street, north side from a point 90 feet from the intersection of Pleasant and Park Streets. West Street, north side from a point 85 feet from the intersection of West and Main Streets. West Street, north side from a point 43 feet west of Church Street. West Street, north side from a point 20 feet west from the intersection of School Street, westerly to a point 20 feet east from Gardner Place. West Street, north side to a point 495 feet westerly of the intersection of West Street with Main Street. West Street, south side to a point 548 feet westerly of the intersection of West Street with Main Street. West Street, south side from a point 95 feet from the intersection of West and Main Streets. West Street, south side from a point 90 feet from the intersection of Park and West Streets and extending westerly 80 feet. My recommendation would be to adopt the first reading.
And I will check with the other member of your committee, Councilor Tossi.
I agree.
Okay. You've heard the unanimous recommendation to adopt the first reading of an ordinance.
We got a question.
I need to-
Yeah, I have discussion. So I just want to, first of all, I just want to thank Officer Frere for putting all this together. I'm sure it was a lot of work. But I'm gonna pick on something. Church Street, east side from West Street to the police station. I think that should read something different because this language could be there for 20 years, 30 years, whatever. And that's not going to be a police, it's not a police station now, and the building.
Former police station?
I think what they need to do is it should say Church Street, east side from West Street to, and they need to measure the footage and tell us how many feet. We should be putting the footage in there instead of referencing the police station because that's not going to mean anything soon. Really don't mean anything now. It's not a police station anymore. So I just, that's something I caught before the final reading. If we can have them measure that footage and amend that, I think it's a good idea. Not that it's a huge deal, but since we're doing some housekeeping, let's clean it all up.
I'm fine with that. So I guess instead of adopting the first reading, we can give the first reading further time. And we can send this back to Captain Frere with that note on that, the Church Street, that last one's on the first page.
Yep.
Okay? So my recommendation would not be adopt, it would be give the first reading further time.
Okay, so you've heard the recommendation from the Legal Affairs Committee. Councilor Tossi, I believe you're in agreement with that?
Yes, I agree.
Thank you. Councilor Tossi, the unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to grant 14-26 further time and to seek an amendment to that from Captain Frere. All those in favor, please recognize in the usual manner. Any opposed? By a vote of 8-0, that can be granted. On to the 16-26, Madam Chairwoman.
Yep. Okay, sorry. Okay, this is in reference to petition 16-26, which was Mark Bedanza, Ward 4, City Council request to amend section 13-77, stop signs of the Leominster Municipal Code by adding a stop sign for eastbound traffic at Givry Circle at the intersection of Gordon Street. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Leominster as follows. Amend Chapter 13 of the revised ordinances entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic. Chapter 13 is amended in section 13-77 stop signs by inserting the following. Givry Circle against eastbound traffic at the intersection with Gordon Street. My recommendation would be to adopt the first reading.
And Councilor Tossi.
I also agree.
Okay, you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to adopt the first reading of an ordinance. This has to be by roll call, I believe?
Mm-hmm.
Any discussion? Okay, Councilor Cormier?
Yay.
Councilor Arndinger?
Yay.
Councilor Noseworthy?
Yay.
Councilor Tossi?
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
Yay.
Councilor Robbins?
Yay.
Councilor Frida?
Yay.
And I shall be recorded as yay, so by a vote of 8-0, the first reading has been adopted. Moving on to 17-25.
17-25, Susan Shalfo Zephyr, Councilor at Large, request place no parking signs across the street from 59 to 63 Manchester Street apartment building. I don't have any.
Okay.
I don't have any information
If
on.
I can interrupt you just briefly, late in the day, we received a notice from the mayor's office that there was some concern brought up by citizens regarding 17-25. It was their request that we grant this further time this evening and schedule it for another public hearing. I'm sorry, not a public hearing, I'm sorry, just to grant further time on this.
But what exactly were the comments? I mean, Captain Frere was the person who went and looked at the site and agreed that it was dangerous and there shouldn't be parking on that
The
section.
letter that came from the mayor's, which I did put a copy, it wasn't in the original packet. I put it with everything that I put down here this evening, asking if the abutters were notified. Abutters were not notified, but we don't normally do that. The only time we, according to the city ordinance, that we notify the abutters is if there's a zoning map change.
Right.
And some people, he would like us to have further, ask us to give further time and not do the first reading until we notify the abutters. I have not had a conversation with the
Who's
mayor.
going to notify the abutters? We don't do, I mean, it's not in our ordinance, we don't do that.
I know that.
And the police captain is the person who went to that location and understood what the problem was. And this came from a constituent who drives up and down that particular spot, and he had been reaching out for a little while. So we can adopt the first reading. We still have a second reading. So if there are comments that can come in, we still have the second reading that we can address if anybody wants to have more of a conversation about it. I'm happy to do that with Captain Frere. But I'd like to adopt the first reading, and then we still have the second reading. And if anybody wants to get in touch with me, I would be happy to talk with them about it, and then also have an additional conversation with Captain Frere. Okay, so my recommendation is to adopt the first reading.
And I will check with Councillor Tossi.
I agree.
Okay, you've heard the unanimous recommendation to adopt the first reading of an ordinance on 17-25. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Frida.
Is there a rush on this? I mean, if there are some neighbors, and we don't know, we're assuming that it's neighbor concerns?
I assume so, yes.
Indicated?
I understand that, and I'm amenable to talking with neighbors about any concerns that they have, but this was brought to me by an elderly constituent who had some, very concerns. He lives in the neighborhood, and explained to me what the problem was, so I investigated it myself. I talked to Captain Frere, and Captain Frere investigated it. So I'm amenable. It gives 2 weeks for people to come back, for neighbors to weigh in before we adopt the second and final reading. So, yeah, I understand if there are, people that want to weigh in on it. I'm happy to talk with them.
So why wouldn't we wait and adopt the first reading 2 weeks from now? So that if there is a concern that's valid, we have to change it, then you don't have to change the first reading. You can just amend it without, I guess I don't understand why we would adopt the first reading when, if there's somebody that's got a concern that we don't know what the concern is. It could be a dangerous concern. I don't know. I agree that, I don't see an issue there, but obviously somebody does.
Councillor Roberts?
I just have a...
I'm sorry. Councillor Frida, were you all set? Okay.
I just have a logistical/procedural question. If we adopt the first reading tonight and choose not to adopt the second reading, where does that leave us procedurally? Because we took a vote to approve it, then we would have taken a vote to adopt it, and then we take a vote to deny it. Do we have any clarity on where that might leave us?
I know you can vote to have the first one printed, and then you can amend the second one. I'm not positive on if you vote against it. I will have to check into that.
But generally, you do it when there's a feeling that there's just going to be an amendment, and you're still going to adopt it at the second reading. But if
the amendment here in this case, though, could be to throw it out.
Right, we don't know. That's the problem. We don't know what the issue is.
If I may. At this point, I guess we didn't adopt the first reading of the other one, right? So if we didn't adopt that first reading because we want to make up some language changes, and there's a concern, right? There's a concern. So we held off on that. To be consistent, I'd say let's hold off on this first reading as well. The fact of the matter is this: we could pass the whole thing, first reading, second reading, and the mayor could veto it, and we could override it. But, I'd rather work out a problem now instead of, we just did that with the other one. We just held off on the first reading, so, I don't know, let's be consistent, I guess. That's how I'm not gonna vote to adopt the first reading, because I just will be consistent with the other one we just did and hold off.
Okay, any other comments? Any other discussion? Madam Chairwoman, does your initial recommendation still hold?
It does, because this elderly gentleman has been, he's been talking about this for 6 months, at least according to him. So I'm happy to move forward with it. If anybody has any complaints or any concerns, they can certainly reach out to me. I'm happy to talk with people about that. We could change it if we needed to.
Okay. All right, so you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to grant the first reading of an ordinance on 17-25. This will be by roll call. Councillor Cormier.
Nay.
Councillor Arndinger.
Nay.
Councillor Noseworthy.
Yay.
Councillor Tossi.
Yay.
Councillor Robbins.
About me.
Councillor Shalfo.
Sorry, Colleen.
Yay.
Yeah.
Councillor Robbins.
Nay.
Councillor Frida.
Nay.
And I will be recorded as a nay. So, as a vote of 6 to 2?
5 to 3?
I think 5 to 3. I think 5 to 3.
I
Yep.
skipped you again, Councillor Shalfo, my
Thanks a lot, Colleen.
apologies.
Okay, 5 to 3.
The first reading of the ordinance is not granted. Adopted, sorry.
Right, that's okay.
Moving on to the community calendar, we have nothing listed. Does anyone have anything to add to the community calendar?
Veterans Day is tomorrow.
Veterans Day is tomorrow, Monument Square at 10:30 a.m., festivities in City Hall afterwards.
11?
11.
Yep.
Councilor Noseworthy?
Thank you, Madam President. Can I bring up something under new business as well?
They moved beyond.
Under new business?
Yeah.
Certainly.
Oh, great, thank you. I was wondering if we could ask the city clerk to send a letter on behalf of the city council asking the mayor to explore the possibility of making a donation to each food pantry in the city.
Make a motion.
Yeah.
Make a motion.
Is there a motion to?
Yes, thank you. So I'd like to make a motion to ask the city clerk to send a letter on behalf of the city council asking the mayor to explore the possibility of making a donation to each food pantry in the city.
I'll second it.
Second it. So do we have a motion on the floor?
Well, I mean,
Madam President.
I just want to say, if I may, I'm not against it, but shouldn't this be on the agenda? I mean, we're taking action on
I believe you're right.
something. I mean-
So perhaps we can suggest that and have that show up on the next agenda?
Sure. Thank you, Madam President.
Okay. All right, back to the community calendar. I will just throw out there St. Cecilia's holiday carnival, poutines.
Yay!
Friday,
This weekend.
Friday and Saturday.
Friday and Saturday,
Meat
get there
pie.
fast,
Meat
your meat
pie.
pies, your rape, get there because it goes
Are they
quick.
making meat pies? I thought they weren't making meat pies this year.
As far as I know, they're
Are they
making meat
making
pies.
meat pies?
You can order them tomorrow night.
Oh, I
Or,
thought
I'm
she-
sorry,
I
you
thought
can order
she said
them.
She wasn't doing them
You
this
can
year.
order them this weekend and pick them up closer to Christmas. Yep. Yep.
I missed it. You can order me that?
Yes.
Apparently.
You can order them there and pick them up closer to Christmas. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Excellent job, Pauline.
Thank you.
Excellent job.
Thank you, everyone.
nicely
Thank you
done.
for their patience.
Good job.
Go back to battle Thursday.